morning, afternoon, and evening to all those listening in from across the globe. My name is Smitha, I'm part of NASSCOM FutureSkills team. Today's session is a conversation part of the recently concluded NASSCOM Technology and Leadership Forum, which happened in Feb this year. We have moved on from artificial intelligence to talking blockchain, Meta, Web 3.0, Polygon, NFT, crypto. These words have seen an enormous growth in Google searches over the last 1 year. That just means that's where we go when we don't know something. 2.8% of the world's population is already using blockchain. You may not even know if you're one of them because many of the newer tech-enabled solutions have this as an underlying technology. The worldwide spending on blockchain solutions will reach 11.7 billion by the end of this year. It's my pleasure to introduce my two guests to discuss on demystifying what is blockchain, what are the use cases that blockchain may solve, specifically crypto, and then maybe what each one of us can do in this area, in this emerging area. Rohit Talwar. Rohit is a futurist with a global perspective who works with international corporations, investors, startups, and governments to help them understand what might shape the next 5 years to 10 years on how to make best use of these exponential technologies. He's the co-author and lead editor of 9 books on the emerging future. Rohit, welcome. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Kapil Gupta. Kapil is the co-founder of Nibana.life. He's a crypto and blockchain enthusiast and analyst who works very closely with Rohit. He has an MBA from University of Edinburgh and background in computer systems. He's also a TEDx speaker and a co-author. Welcome, Kapil.
Thanks for having me,
Excited to have you. So, Rohit and Kapil, can you simplify this happening relevant to our audience? Let's say a business owner who might be missing an opportunity to scale, a student who wants to get into this area and ride the skilling wave, or an entrepreneur who wants to bootstrap a startup in the area and maybe to solve some of the problems they have identified.
Sure, I'll go first. I think I've been thinking about this. So blockchain essentially is a technology that is secure, distributed, immutable, and transparent. And that's the technology, right? But the opportunity, the excitement, I believe, is in the numbers. So as of yesterday, as the time of recording, let's say, the total market cap of crypto space is 1.8 trillion. At its peak last year, it was about 2.9 trillion market cap. And if we compare that to what it was in mid-2020, that was 200 billion. So the speed with which the space is moving and changing is phenomenal. Last year, we had about 10,000 different coins or tokens or projects in this space. This year, we have around 20,000 projects. There are, as you said, a particular number of people who are already in this space. There's 350 million plus crypto users in the world today. And when we talk about opportunities, we say the crypto space or blockchain space is often compared with the gold market, which is about 11 trillion. But the way we see it, I think it's an amalgamation of all sorts of different markets. Gold is 11 trillion. Derivatives market itself is 400 trillion when we talk about financial services. And by the time you add other things like real estate, et cetera, because it's a technology that underpins a lot of these industry sectors, the opportunity is just massive, and in terms of when we talk about entrepreneurs, we talk about, students or IT leaders or business leaders, we feel that we are in the early adopter phase of the bell curve. It's that space where internet or .com space was in 90s. So that is how we see this. So, and the speed of adoption is just massive. And today, if you look at the industry sectors that are taking on blockchain and crypto as the underlying technology, you can see that across, like energy, healthcare, e-commerce, education, real estate, you name it, blockchain is there.
I just add a couple of things there, building on what Kapil said. When you mentioned that figure of 11+ billion being spent on blockchain this year, that's a massive understatement, because the entire crypto sector is built on blockchains. All of the NFTs that people are buying are using blockchains. And then if we look at the metaverses that are coming through, most of those run on decentralized blockchains. And everything that's created inside those metaverses is an NFT. So I think we could be out by several, maybe 20 or 30 times more being spent on blockchain this year. And we don't know all the projects that are coming through. We don't really have a sense of the exact value of how much corporates are spending on blockchain. But what we're seeing, as Kapil mentioned, was this rapid rush to it now. 2 years ago, corporations were saying, well, we can't see any application that we would put on blockchain. Now it's hard to find any business application where you say, we don't need it to be secure, we don't need it to be transparent, and we don't need it to be immutable, i.e., we want people to be able to change the records. We don't want any of that. We want everything now to be super secure. Distributed gives us that, and blockchain, this distributed ledger technology, is suddenly being seen as a way to build trust in everything we do, to give us verifiable data on everything we do. So it's a real opportunity now for businesses not just to do things slightly smarter, but to rethink the way they do business.
Okay, that was a quick intro, I would say. So maybe Kapil or Rohit, one of you, if you can just tell what is this hierarchy of words? This blockchain, we hear crypto, NFT. So how does this all come together?
Shall I go?
Sure. Yeah, go for it, Rohit.
So blockchain is the underlying technology. Basically, we won't go into the details, but the idea is that you replicate the information on multiple database, on multiple servers. So you have a database, it's a distributed database. So if you have a transaction, it's recorded in multiple places. So if someone tries to change a transaction on one server, instantly all the other servers notice that there's a disagreement. So you can't do that. That's why it's immutable. On top of that, the first noticeable application was cryptocurrency. Bitcoin was the first back in 2009. And now we've seen a proliferation, as Caps mentioned, over 20,000 projects of people creating either just currencies that are trading currencies or stores of value like Bitcoin, or their businesses, and we'll talk about a few of them, where they've got some functionality. They're managing a supply chain, they're providing a platform to create NFTs, and they're using crypto tokens to fund them, and they're running on a blockchain. Then you have these things called NFTs. Just see those as assets that are secured digitally. So you might have had a physical painting, now you can put it into a digital asset and secure it. No one can copy it because it's yours, it's unique to you. You can put that asset inside a metaverse now, so that your building is effectively an NFT inside that metaverse. So there's this hierarchy there of activities, and it will continue to proliferate. There's just an incredible wave of innovation going on here. We're seeing this coming together of 4 communities. One is very advanced technologists and security experts who are designing the underlying platforms. The second is mathematicians with a brain bigger than this planet, coming up with novel concepts, and economists as well, coming up with phenomenal ideas that we just couldn't deliver in the current world economic markets. And then we're seeing now a lot of creatives coming in, a lot of business thinkers, marketing people, creative specialists coming up with new business concepts. And the great thing is, whereas it might take 3 to 5 years to get some of those concepts to market in the traditional world, what you're seeing is those ideas are being born, developed, and launched within months in the crypto space. So this is not just a level of innovation. This is a fundamental new way of working and doing business and launching technology ventures.
Wow. Okay. So I'm sure there are more newer sectors and probably words that we've not heard of as businesses, all that are coming up. But let's see how blockchain, crypto, these are going to change the way some of the traditional or the so-called traditional sectors, right? Let's take, for example, maybe financial services, healthcare, supply chain, maybe retail, manufacturing, right? How are all these sectors going to change? And what would, as let's say, as a user, what would we see as a differentiation? And then maybe we'll delve into the opportunities for others.
Yeah, let's start with financial. One of the big change that's been happening in blockchain and crypto is called decentralized finance. So all of the financial services that we know in a traditional sense, they're all becoming decentralized. And it only started in 2020, mid 2020. And today that industry, that sector has grown to about 120 billion. And at peak last year was about $200 billion. And the kind of projects that we are seeing is things that were only available to, let's say, people with high net worth. Now punters like you and I can go in and invest in exchanges. We can become market makers. One of the things that in the last year that we've seen is really high interest return on your investment. If you go to traditional finance, in the UK, for example, you get 0.1% return on your savings. In decentralized finance, getting 10 to 20% annual return is very common. It's very easily you can get that. Then things like taking out loans, the bureaucratic process or the process that that is existing in traditional financial sectors. Now we are using things like smart contracts, which are rule-based automated contracts. So if you provide collateral, you can get out loan without any human intervention. It's like it's a click of a button and you can get these things. So these kind of changes, these are just like some of the changes, but financial industry, as we know, is changing. And the final thing I'm seeing is all stakeholders are incentivized for participation. It's not just the shareholder value, but if you participate in the project in any way, you get incentivized for that. Rohit, you want to add some other examples?
Well, yeah, a good one to add to that in the traditional financial markets is Commonwealth Bank in Australia. They were one of the first to embrace blockchain, and they used it for loan syndication. So traditionally, if you want to raise $300 million, there's a lot of negotiation with all the parties who might give you money. You're back and forth. People are arguing about their deal, their rates. They were able to put it on a blockchain, make it completely transparent, and the parties involved could either join or not, but it was very much faster to do it on a blockchain. Everyone could see how much money was being allocated to the loan or how much of the loan was being taken up, so you could make a decision. And actually, one of the things it did was people saw that the loan was being taken up faster than they thought. So it encouraged others to get in quickly so they didn't miss out on the deal. And we're seeing more and more of this where people are taking traditional applications and just saying, let's take out the time and the cost of running these in a traditional way and just speed it up, make it more transparent and add value. And so when we think about it, so much of our daily lives now, underlying it, there is a blockchain solution somewhere. The credit card companies more and more are starting to use blockchain. They're encouraging merchants and banks to accept crypto. All of that is on a blockchain. We're seeing in the banking system more and more of the international settlements and money transfers are being done using blockchain-based platforms. So this is going to accelerate in the next few years and create an immense set of opportunities.
Okay, so what about healthcare then?
Yeah, I was going to go to
Yeah.
so healthcare and
Okay.
supply chain, some of the things, and when let's look at supply chain, for example, because it has an effect on pretty much all different industries like retail, manufacturing, healthcare. And part of the thing with supply chain is getting transparency across the board, right? Like across the value chain. So I was talking to someone the other day in Netherlands. They're working on bringing out a new food product where it's such a specialized food product that they need to know exactly what kind of ingredients, the minerals that are going in. So one of the challenges for them is how do we make sure that the raw ingredients, right from how the farming is done, the ingredients used in the farming, from that to the final product being produced, how do we track all of that? How do we track the quality of the product? How do we track that everything is done as it's supposed to be done? And blockchain is playing such an important role in that, in supply chain process. There's a company called VeChain that is one of the well-known blockchain organization in supply chain space, and they're working with pretty much all big brands in the West and also in the East in the supply chain space. I think Rohit had an example as well.
Yeah, so another issue in the supply chain is stock shrinkage. You might order, let's say, 1,000 cases of peanuts, and that's what the farmer ships to you. But somewhere along the line, we lose cases on the way. And we don't really know, because everyone is saying they're passing on 1,000 cases. It's only when it gets to the retail outlet that they realize they've only got 950 cases. And then everyone's pointing at everyone else to say, where did it go wrong? What's happening with blockchain is we can put a sensor on each of those, or a tag on each of those cases, and we can monitor it at each point, scan it, and then that information is captured on the blockchain. So as soon as it shows up that there's less cases going onto a ship or onto a truck or coming out of a warehouse that they went into, instantly we can investigate that and challenge the people to say, well, 1,000 cases came into your warehouse, only 975 have come out, or 975 cases went onto your ship, but only 950 came off. And so it gives much greater control. And then for border agencies and customs agencies, there's a huge challenge around making sure that the goods coming through are what you say they are, and that they meet all of the regulatory requirements about what can come into the country. That's impossible for customs officers to check everything, because you would never get everything across a border. So by having blockchain and having all the goods that are coming through on blockchains, then you can manage that process and you can identify if there's something coming through that hasn't got the right certification. And then you focus your efforts on those. And both of those examples are being tackled by a startup company here called Ublockity, who are working on those projects with their clients because of the challenge that's there, and because there aren't any standard technology solutions that deal with that issue. Kapil.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's something, I just wanted to say, I was part of a sports good manufacturers project where we were trying to make sure that to a certain country, the raw materials cannot be built in country B, right? So this was such a big problem. I'm talking about late 2000s, and this was a huge issue. I'm sure with blockchain, these kind of problems can be tackled easily. But what is the financial implications of it? I mean, you're talking about putting chips in each of the carriages. So how does it work?
Well, if the sensors are very cheap, already some people are putting sensors or QR codes. They're printed labels, so they cost nothing, a fraction of a rupee to put each one on. So but compared to the savings, the benefits are massive. And that's how people are looking at these. It's not necessarily generating new revenues in that case. What it's doing is reducing cost. And so there's a big impact on profits there. And that's something we can talk about later. But in every industry, people are saying, how do I improve efficiency? Maybe how do I improve revenue generation? How do I speed things up? All of which can impact my bottom line, because if I'm speeding things up, I'm getting my money faster. I'm increasing the cycles on my money, the turnover, so my cash flow, so I can make more money that way. So people are really getting that there's a direct financial benefit from using these solutions. Kapil, I think you were going to talk about some healthcare examples, weren't you?
Yeah, just to add on to what you were saying, in terms of efficiency. So healthcare is a great example where making sure that the patient records are, well, a couple of things: the digital identity, managing digital identity securely, and also transferring patient records across the system is one of the main areas that blockchain is tackling. The other piece, when supply chain comes in, managing the supply chain of the drugs is one of the main areas that we're looking at. And here's an example of smart contracts. So let's look at healthcare insurance. Now, if you have smart contracts in certain cases, you don't need that human intervention to ensure whether the insurance should be paid out or not. Using smart contracts, that in itself, I was reading yesterday that just in US, there's like a $78 billion opportunity just in the health insurance sector. And it also facilitates new drug development by making that secure data made available and widely accessible across the countries, across the platforms. So an example here is a company called Mediblock, and they are one of the main ones. They have like a 200 million market cap right now, and they're working in the privacy space and making sure the data is reliable and optimized for data exchange.
Great. One other example I would give you is in the environmental field. So perhaps the biggest challenge facing the planet today is climate change, or dangerous climate change. And one of the ways that we try to deal with that is with carbon offsets. So basically, I emit too much carbon where I am, and I buy a credit that says, okay, somewhere in the world, there are a group of trees that will absorb carbon to offset what I'm emitting. But there's a very loose link in the monitoring. So I don't know for sure that the trees I've paid for are actually absorbing carbon or enough carbon. So now there's a project called Preserverland, where basically you're paying for 1,000 trees. Those 1,000 trees have a sensor in them. Your ownership of those trees is locked in an NFT, so they can't be given to anyone else. So we can now monitor the emissions or the absorption of every single one of those trees. We can put that information on a blockchain, and it's completely transparent. So then if I'm auditing your company and you say that you're offsetting your extra 100 tons of CO2 emission with these 1,000 trees, I can see whether you're doing that or whether you're only offsetting 20 tons and you need to do more. So that will be really important in terms of making sure that we're doing the right things around the planet. And some people have a different view on this, but as a scientist, I'm firmly committed to the idea that we need to reduce our carbon emissions rapidly. So projects like this are very, very exciting to me.
That's very, very interesting. So I'm sure at this stage, probably the audiences are thinking, how do I identify opportunities? If they are, let's say, a business leader or a technical leader, how do I identify opportunities? Anything where there is verification, contracts, is that the place to look for? Maybe probably some cues on that. And also students or technical experts, how do they get into blockchain? So that's probably those are the questions.
Yeah, so I think if we start with business leaders, then we need to invest some time to understand this, what it is, how it's being used, the potential applications and the benefits. And there is a wealth of information out there to access, and you can see it in every market. Then it's about having a conversation internally and having a deep dive to say, okay, what are those high value opportunities, whether they're problems or growth opportunities that we could address with this? And then it's about investigating how you deliver it in-house or with a partner, doing a pilot project and seeing what you have to learn in order to make that happen. All the way along the line, it's also about talking to others who are doing this to understand where the roadblocks were and what the critical success factors were. And a very important thing as a business leader is to make sure your technology people can deliver on this. So therefore, as an IT leader, I need to make sure that we understand this stuff at real depth. We're doing tiny projects inside IT to make sure we've got the right skills and we know. So then when we talk to the business, we can give them a good sense of what's possible and how long it will take and how much it will cost. And then we need to make sure that we're growing our skill set because we'll be putting more and more on the blockchain. So we need to make sure that more and more of our people in IT can either build blockchain applications or manage them or provide the right infrastructure for them. And then as a student, the final piece I would say for students is learn. There are great courses for free available online. Gary Gensler is the chairman of the Security and Exchange Commission in the US. He comes from that world. There's a 20-hour program that he taught, I think it was at MIT, available for free that really is a deep dive on blockchain. So there's no excuse. If you're a student, you can teach yourself this stuff. But also it's really important not just to be a techie nerdy type and know all the things about coding. The real value you can add is by understanding the applications and being able to talk in business language to business users about what you can do, because then you could talk yourself into jobs with small to medium-sized companies that are desperate to do something in blockchain, but they can't find the resources. If you've trained yourself, you open yourself up to possibilities. And sorry, one final thought. As an entrepreneur, so all of that applies, but entrepreneurs tend to know something about a space and have a deep understanding. And then it's looking at that space or talking to friends about spaces they're involved in and saying, where are the gaps? Where are the points of failure? Where are the unmet opportunities? And then investigating those. And then starting to say, okay, what could we do in that space? And then going back and talking to people in the space and saying, look, if we could solve this problem for you, what would that be worth? Or if we could create this opportunity for you, what would that be worth? So it's then, whilst there might be a gap in the market, you want to make sure there's money in the gap. And that's key. Kapil, is there anything you'd like to add to those?
Yeah, maybe a couple of points. I would say we got to look at this opportunity as, in the 90s and early 2000s, we were talking about the web development, we were at the space where the Yahoo, the Facebook, the MySpace of the Web 2.0 were coming out. And the way I look at it is like we're in a similar spot with Web 3.0, which is essentially those, if we look at the business use cases for those companies, now we're going distributed and we're going really global in that sense. So it's not like a centralized organization, but how do we use distributed technology? So I think that's one of the ways to look at it is like, okay, how do we see this space as a brand new space, and the speed with which things are changing? We've seen so many presentations over the last few years where we say, oh, when TV was introduced, it took 50 years for it to come in. When social media came out, we got to 1 billion users in 2 years, 3 years time. Now, when we talk about blockchain, we're speeding that up even more. We're talking about billions of users in the matter of months, if at all. So that's the speed we're looking at. The way traditional, now we call it traditional, you look at content, you look at social media, you look at music, you look at how we interact is becoming seamless, and it's becoming much more individual focused, much more privacy focused, much more distributed. So I think that's a great way to start thinking about this space. The other thing I would say is the kind of jobs that are emerging from this space is, one is the technical, understanding the smart contract, understanding the blockchain itself, the technology. But the real value will be in designing, let's say, the user experience. when we talk about the communities in these projects, we talk about global communities that are working across time zones. So if you, for example, go and download this app called Discord and you join some of the projects, you will see people from all around the world talking 24/7. You need community managers. So it's a brand new space coming up with brand new jobs like that. So, artists and graphic designers, or anything to do with, your skills with graphic design or animation and those kind of things are really valuable in this space. Things that where we would not have access to audience in the past, or we would have to spend a lot of time and effort, audience right now is available in blockchain space. So new business use cases are coming out left, right, and center. So those are some of the additional ways you can look at jobs.
Sure. Just want to add here. So in India, we have this platform, FutureSkills, which is FutureSkills Prime, which is the platform which is reskilling the Indian population in these latest digital technologies. So our idea is, as you were rightly saying, anybody can add blockchain into their understanding, and that can transform their view towards the business, or probably their overall contribution to the IT industry itself. So that's something which I strongly recommend. I mean, I think we have courses in blockchain that one can consume, and that'll be an interesting place to start with.